Hello and good morning, friends. Today we're going to be taking a look at a house from 1949 and we don't have any records. So we're going to go ahead, take a peek at this backyard, see if we can figure out where things are, and hopefully everything's working the way it's supposed to. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so first glance, we pop this open. We've got ourselves a concrete riser and a PVC front clean out. So that to me tells me that this is not going to be from the 1940s. The other piece that we can see in here is going to be a PVC front baffle. A little bit harder to see. I'll get a flashlight in a few seconds and we'll take a peek. But that means that somebody's replaced this system at some point. So that is a good step in the right direction. Next thing we got to do is we got to look inside the tank, make sure all the baffles are where they belong, and to make sure that everything's flowing correctly to the drain fields, dry well, or wherever this thing's going. These houses in this area in the 1940s, generally it would be a cinder block tank to one single pit. So we see that we've got a new tank here. So let's see if they have an old absorption system or if maybe they updated it when they replaced this tank. Now, one funny thing was somebody had a playset sitting right on top of the tank. Probably not the best place to have a child's playset, but you know, I guess that is one way to mark where your septic is. Generally, these lids are strong enough to where a kid can't get into the tank or play with the tank, but I would usually recommend be careful putting play sets over a septic system just in case this thing ever backs up. Sometimes if it backs up, that sewage can end up being all over this yard and grass. You don't really want a kid playing in raw sewage. That'd be kind of gross. So next thing what we're going to do is we're going to measure out where the lid on the back of the tank is, dig that up, and then I'm going to toss my camera through to see where it wanders off to over there. Alrighty, so we got the back lid of the tank off. We see that we've got a PVC back baffle. Running a little bit of water, making sure everything's draining real quick, and then we're going to toss the camera through in a minute. But we see here we have this lid. Now, this style of lid was very common in the early 2000s. So we already know that based off the riser and the clean out and the composition of the baffles, somebody's replaced this tank at some point. 100% would not be from the 1940s. But because we've got this lid with these types of handles, this will usually mean that this was installed in the early 2000s. So I think we might be lucky and in for a treat of a nice functional system on a house from the 1940s. Let's go ahead, toss the camera through that back line, see where she goes, and hopefully we have drain fields. All right, so we've gone ahead, run the camera through the pipe, and it actually turns out they have a brand new drain field. Basically, probably roughly around the same time as the tank was put in. It's PVC. All of it looks like it's in pretty good shape. Everything's bone dry and water's flowing through it. So I think that this house is in pretty good shape, right? Not every day that you're going to find a home from the 1940s that has a relatively new septic system. It's very, very important to make sure that if you don't know where it is or what you're working with, that you have somebody come out and take a look at it, right? So the whole purpose of why I'm here is nobody knows what they're working with, how old it is. They bought it sight unseen a couple years ago, haven't touched it since. No idea what they're doing. That's why I'm here to kind of help walk them through where everything is. So I generally will recommend, if you're purchasing a house, get the septic inspected at least, or try to figure out where the thing is after you move in, because for all they could have known, they could have been walking into an old cinder block tank or a metal tank, a cesspool, maybe even a failure, and that can cost a lot of money, right? These older houses, they didn't really have the same construction standards, right? So the rules were a little bit different. The systems were a little bit different. You ended up having all sorts of weird, janky, homemade stuff put in that usually didn't work and almost always failed pretty quickly. And that's why at this point, most of them have been replaced. But you still find a few every now and again. Last week, I had a whole bunch that were from the 1800s. And they certainly looked like it, right? I guess this week is the week of old homes with new systems. So to me, that's a pleasant surprise. I prefer it that way. It makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on and not actually have to deal with any kind of shenanigans, right? So a septic system generally can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. It can be a little bit more in this area. This area does have a high water table, and there also are a bunch of streams that kind of work their way through the area. So if you have a high water table or if you're near a stream, the odds of you getting a traditional septic system are pretty low. So usually that's where you end up with pump chambers and innovative systems and all that other tomfoolery. That stuff can get very expensive very quickly. So very important, make sure you try your best to avoid that sort of thing, right? Unless you have money, do whatever you want, right? So this one looks like it's in pretty good shape. House was built in the 1940s. Septic system, no records, not entirely sure, but based off of everything I'm seeing, I would be willing to bet that this was probably put in the early 2000s. Looks like it's working perfectly fine. These systems are generally designed to last 30 or 40 years. So if it was put in the early 2000s, they should still have another 20 years before they have to worry about anything. Now, if they're using less people than what the design spec is for, they should get a significantly longer period of time out of it, right? So this house is a 3-bedroom home. And so what that means is that this system should be built for 6 people. So if you have 6 people living on this house, you should get a 30 or 40 year shelf life. If you have less than 6, you should get a percentage more of the life expectancy, right? So best way to maintain a septic system, pump out the tank. Human waste, toilet paper, that's it. Don't put stuff down that doesn't belong going down there. I hope that you found this entertaining and enjoyable. If you learned something, leave a comment below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have more videos posted every day in the world of well and septic. Who knows, maybe the next house could be from the 1800s. Till next time, guys.